All right, Paige, we finally got together and we were
Yeah.
just having a quick conversation before I hit record of how we never really had the opportunity to connect, right? And so now this
Hmm.
podcast is a way for me to learn more about Paige, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. So first, Paige, just going to share that we connected last year. I think it was November around the time,
Hmm.
and it was just brief interactions, and so we stayed in contact with each other since then, short interactions since then, and now we get to do this. And so I'm glad to have you on here, sharing your journey, and I'm excited to learn more
Yeah.
about you, and hopefully the listeners and the audience can learn more about you, and whatever it is that you experienced, they can know that they didn't, they're not alone. They can get through this too. So
Oh
I'll
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and I'll open it up to you, Paige. Why don't you just start off like who you are? Who are you today? What are you doing? What are you most excited about?
Um, well, I would say first and foremost, my heart is always that I feel like I have a heart of a coach. I've always been a coach. I started off as a counselor and I went into I did 12 years in counseling and I felt trapped and I was put in a box and labeled and all this other stuff. So I've been a coach since 2018. I went into that modality and the biggest shift that has happened for me is like I've ran my own business for 7 years. I started in 2018. I left my full-time job in 2021. So I've been doing that for the last almost 5 years. And yeah, it's I have the heart of the coach because what we're doing is in this new venture that I'm doing, which actually is a company with Soul Charge. It's called Soul Charge, and it's for female entrepreneurs. And I've been serving female entrepreneurs for the last solidly for the last like 2.5 years. Is that we are impacting women in business by helping them rewire their internal operating system so that they can produce the results that they absolutely want to achieve without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling burnt out, without feeling like this glass ceiling is always there, and just being able to like create in a very more or a much more authentic space and just coming from the inside out. And it really affects business in that way because the way that we teach it is the internal operating system comes first, which is that feeling, that emotion, that balance of like what is going on inside of you matters and it comes out externally. Like if you're having a bad day or if you're not feeling aligned, or if your energy is off, you might be snapping at your kids too quickly, or you might not be communicating with your team very well, or you might just yell at the guy in the grocery store line. Like I don't know, but something is happening. It doesn't feel really good. And so your sales are going to be off, your KPIs are going to be off, your everything's going to be off, and it's not going to get you to the success that you really want to make. And so we believe that, and I've believed this, this is similar work that I've been doing for the last 7 years, is that when you have that lined up and we can help you do that and you achieve what you want to in the world, and that's our purpose, is like helping women get to that place in life where they're fulfilling their purpose. And like as a result, that's us fulfilling ours because we're supposed to be like helping them lead that way. So that's what's been on my heart for the last, I would say, 7 years. And finally, kind of all the pieces are coming together for me to really make that happen and make that, I would say, dream more of a reality with the people that I've been working with. So that's been good.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. There's a lot of stuff we can unpack here.
I know so much. I love to try to summarize it, but it's like what am I doing? It's like there's so many things. It's so many things. So yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel, I'm going to start off with what you just shared, and then,
Yeah.
we can probably go backwards maybe and figure out how you got to where you are today, really.
Yeah.
So do you feel that the entrepreneurs that you're helping, they started out with not being prepared for success in a sense, like they have this mission, this job, or their business that they want to create, right? And they just do it, but they didn't build the foundation. Is it something along those lines that you're finding?
I think it's a mixture, honestly. Like it's what we found is more that especially female business owners in this world of entrepreneur land, like that's what I like to call it, is we find, and I'm somebody who personally did this, so I feel like this is where I relate, is we model our business structure and the foundation of our business off of following in the footsteps of men. And that's not a problem. Like, it's not like a sexist thing. It's just more that when we follow like the Grant Cardones of the world or the Ed Milettes of the world, and we have these representations for us that like this hustle culture is the way that you get there, like women become unbalanced because they're trying to lean too much into that hustle culture and that modality, and then they hit a limit to their success. And sometimes that's a 7-figure limit. Sometimes they do get to that 7-figure line. Um, but a lot of the times they fall short, and then they're like, well, this is just as far as I'm supposed to go. When in reality, they do have a lot more like bandwidth and a lot more that they can give, but they're not in that aligned space. So what ends up happening is we burn out, we stop, we go, I don't want to push that bar again because I hit burnout and that's not comfortable. I don't want to be there. And so we stop and we go, this is as far as I'm going to go. And so that's what we're actually finding is more along the lines of women who just feel stuck. You know, they just kind of hit a point and they're like, I don't know what to do now because I've done all the things. And there's like that quote, and I hate to say this because it's like, we're not crazy, but it's like, you know, keep repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result is actually the definition of being insane, right? But you're not even aware that you're doing it, like, because you feel like you've pivoted and changed all of these, because externally you've changed, like you've done the ads or the marketing or you've hired a coach or whatever it is, but it's the internal system that hasn't changed. And so because of that, like that's why they can't get traction. It's almost like spinning tires in a mud puddle, you know, they can't get the traction to get out. And so it's not so much the foundation as it is just learning from the wrong people and like how to purpose the energy differently and how to approach business differently. And we find ourselves tearing down business a lot for them, like almost like unwinding a knotted thread, right? To figure out where was that point that they kind of felt balance again so that we can return them back to themselves and then kind of move forward from there. So that's really what we're seeing more so than just the innate foundation of the business.
And these are just female entrepreneurs on their own, or would they have a partner most of the time? Or
We get a mix. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's a solopreneur. It just depends. Like a lot of coaches are more on their own. Like if we get a coach, because they don't see the need for the team, even though there probably should be one. So that's where like the foundation piece might come into play because they don't see the relevance of the team. But we get quite a few women who have teams, like they're in financial services or they're doing advertising work or they've built um, we have like somebody building an interior design firm and things like that. It's like very different, you know, varying levels, and both online and in brick and mortar. You know, it's like it's like it doesn't matter what type of business it is. It will be affected because the internal system is the one that's not being represented in their business, and that's where we feel like is like that's why we say we just female entrepreneurs in general, because when we went to look at it and we looked at who we're attracting, it's like so many different varieties of human beings. Like we've had Reiki master teachers and we've had lymphatic specialists and we've had interior designers and, you know, financial advisors. And it's like it doesn't matter because we all like in our every day-to-day basis and business, it's like that's why the foundation, it's like it's not almost as important as it is getting that internal alignment set up before you even start to do this kind of work. Um, and I saw that for myself because I hit burnout. I was by myself and I hit $300,000 a year, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore because it was so exhaustive because I was in the hustle culture, you know, and I love Russell Brunson. I was in his world for 2 years or 3 years really in coaching programs. Love him. He's a brilliant guy, like best marketer in the world right now, honestly. But his modality and the way he functions was not healthy for me. And I found myself really burning out. It was great for my husband. Like he like still is thriving on that entire modality and he loves it, but I can't do it. You know, I can't keep up with it. And that's when I started really looking at women in business and like what was going on. And it's external for a lot of guys, but it's internal for like every woman that we've come across. So
Mm. Yeah, you
it's the
did
difference.
mention, yeah, you did mention like their emotions and stuff and trying to hold on to that and feel that, I guess going through the whole entrepreneur. Can you touch on that a little bit more? Like what, because you're struggling, right? And so like that builds up, I'm sure. And this is not just women too. Like I know it's for men
Yes,
too,
yes,
right?
yes, yes.
But you're helping women, so we're talking about that part. So I mean, like how as a woman too, like how does that work for you guys? You like get stuck and then dive into like, are they actually like reaching out looking for somebody like you, or are you just like somehow just like meshing together some way that it just aligns?
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say to answer the question, it's almost like a two-part
Yeah.
situation because depending on where the woman is at in their business, they express and feel the emotions differently, right? So, and we can see that with men too, right? Like depending on where they're at, it's like if they're in mid six figures or if they're in seven, because of the fact that you're going to hit different blocks and different emotional purges depending on if you're a solopreneur, if you have a team, if you're in six or if you're in seven. And it's because of the responsibilities that come with those as well, right? So you have different areas of that. The most common thing that we see though is that, they don't, if they're in seven figures, they don't really realize the imbalance. All they do, but they do know that they're stuck. Like they know that they've hit a plateau and they don't want to be at that plateau anymore. And they want to expand and they want to grow. And so when we are talking to women a lot of ways, we always go for, that typical business thing of sell them what they want, give them what they need, right? Which is the sales, the growth, the expansion aspect of it, because we do work in business. Like that's the external side of what we do. But the thing is that once they get into the program and then we start talking to them about all of these things that are coming up, then they go, oh yeah, I do feel that way. Like they don't really realize all these blocks that are happening. And then conversely, I would say though the six-figure person understands more the emotional stress. Like they feel it more. And it's probably because they feel like they've been kind of hunting and pecking and trying to get to that seven-figure mark. And they're all about trying to figure out the external stuff by investing in marketing ads, things like that, versus the seven-figure person who might be looking at their team going like, why are you not doing the things that I'm telling you to do? So everything still becomes external to that person that feels stuck. So that's really like the biggest representation that we see is like they're starting to point the fingers at everything else when the core reality is, and this goes for anybody, man, woman, child in general, it's like we are our problem. We are the problem, but we are also the solution. So that's like the best part because it's like we can fix it. It's everything, and we also don't believe anybody needs to be fixed. But they're I would say that they're not really actively looking for us. Sometimes they don't realize that they need us until like something we say on a post or something like that just catches their eye going like, I do feel like this, or I am struggling with this, or my sales aren't actually as consistent as they should be, or something like that. And I would say it's because I would say it's dual. One is because again, we've become separate from what's going on inside of us. We're starting to point the finger everywhere else. Um, because honestly, even me being a coach and in this world, when I hired a coach for business, I didn't realize that it was my internal stuff too. When I was getting there, I was like looking everywhere else, and I was like, I should have known better. But like we're in our own bottle, we can't see our label, right? So I don't think that they're actively looking for it. And I also think that we don't really define ourselves as coaches as much as we do just leaders, like leaders of leaders. Like that's what we do because it's not coaching right now is getting a negative connotation. And a lot because there's a lot of people are out there that aren't good at what they do and it's a struggle. And so I think when they're looking at a coach, if they are looking at an emotional coach, they're really looking for a life coach or somebody who's really much more into that emotional basis of things that they feel like they're just going to kind of sit in a therapist's office and just kind of vent. And so they bypass us because we don't market ourselves that way. So that's why I think that when they find us, it's because they go, that I've been here. Like this is making me feel like something from this post.
for the
Like, yeah,
business, right? For the
yes,
business,
yes. And then they come in and then they break open like an egg, you know? So
yeah.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, just throw it against the wall.
No, not like that. We're not like that. Not that violent.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like they have self-doubt, limiting beliefs
Yes.
for business, right?
Yes.
And so you mentioned somebody in the 600 in the six figures is still kind of hunting, right? Like they maybe
Hmm.
that they got that $1 million mark or whatever. So they're still kind of growing, but then yet they might have to self-doubt because they're not seeing the number actually take off. Um, I've heard this before, and you can, come back and say something different if you like. That the first 100,000 is like the point, right? After that, I think things are a little bit easier from what I'm being told, and then maybe it's the $1 million, and then thereafter, right? So, if you agree with that, great. Others you might disagree with that, but
Yeah.
I think that's part of the case of where it it is that 100,000 that people are still climbing to get, and then once you achieve it, then you're like, I guess it's just like a plateau in a sense, right? So you kind of have that, I
Yes.
made it, and then I'm here, and then when you want to reach, just say 1 million or whatever, um, that you have to kind of figure out what's the next step, and so it sounds like that's where you come into play
Yeah,
because
it's
you're working on
interesting.
the self doubt and the stuff right there, right?
Yes, 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 yes. We
Mhm.
we we work on the self-doubt, and it's interesting because there's so many people. I want to back up a little bit to what you said, like the first 100,000. Like I think the first 100,000 is the most challenging out of all of them, like to
Mhm.
really hit. But I think then there's like levels, right? Because the self-doubt, I think the self-doubt kind of, when you hit the first 100,000, it's like you're still in that hopeful, like this is new and we want to like expand it, and I'm selling stuff, and it's almost like this joyful, like I sell stuff, it's great, like everybody's happy. Like everything's good. But I feel like once you hit 100,000, that's when like, and then you're not expanding. Like if you hit like 100,000, 150,000, and then you can stall there. And that's where I feel like the self-doubt, imposter syndrome starts kicking in, kind of, because what you will see from a lot of marketers out there in the marketplace is like, oh, once you get to 100,000, like what you're saying is like, oh, then you'll take off. And it's like, in theory, yes, if everything that they were setting up was in place, like if everything was running the way it was, if they were in that hunting and pecking, like just like, let me just grab off the shelf running down the grocery store, then it's like you might stall out, because to get from 100,000, I think the next biggest hurdle is to get to 500, right? So it's like that next thing. And then once you get to 500, it's breaking that 7-figure mark, right? But this is where the self-doubt starts to come into play. And this is where we work and this is where we see it, right? So typically, on average, our the person that we've been working with is about like a 300K person, right? Like if they're in the six figures, coming up, because that's where they're stuck. They're like stuck in spinning their wheels and they can't get it over. And so that's that imposter syndrome that you're talking about, which really, imposter syndrome, which I learned from Tony Robbins, is just fear, right? Like that's when you get desperate and you start throwing stuff at walls and hoping that it sticks. And that's when you're not looking in the right spots, because what people don't, and this is something that when I started my business, I wasn't even aware of either, is that the amount of exposure and emotional, emotional things that you will go through, that you're like reliving your old stuff just because you're posting online, just because you're like showing up somewhere, just because you're trying to sell something to somebody, even like your best friend, like that's where the imposter syndrome actually comes from. It's not because you're not making a sale. It's because like everything from childhood, everything from any trigger that you've ever had, it starts coming back up in one way or another because you're exposing yourself in that way. And so if you haven't worked through that, or you're not aware of it, which everybody, I mean, we're all human. I still get triggered sometimes. It just happens. But when you become aware and you bring it to awareness, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now I know what this is coming from. And like, this is how we work, is like, once you bring something to awareness and you get the root of it, you can't unsee it. And that means it's not going to, you might still be aware of it. It might still come up for you, but it's not going to stop you from doing the goal that you want to get. Right. So it's a mixture of, you have to be certain on the inside with sort of where this imposter syndrome is actually coming from. Like, cause it's not just imposter syndrome. That's such a big umbrella. It's like, what about the imposter syndrome is it, to bring it forward and then go into, okay, cool. Okay, now I understand this, but now where is it affecting my business? Because there's something that is not, like, I'm not doing in my business that I'm not even aware of that could actually elevate me to that next level, right? And it could just be like, oh, I'm not posting on social. I think I am because I've been scrolling on TikTok for 5 hours, but I'm not actually posting on social. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's like just an obvious like example, but some people will swear up and down and sideways that they're posting on social media, and I'll go on their account and I'll be like, where? Like, I don't see it, because they're not, or they're not consistent with it, right? So they might post one and then they kind of take a break for 2 weeks and then they post another one, and it's like, that's not really being consistent. And so it could be the reflection of that imposter syndrome, that fear, that self-doubt, that worry, the insecurity that's coming through in that way, right? And then the seven-figure person is very similar fears, but it comes out and manifests in different areas, because it might be in the communication with the team, it might be in the communication with um just your everyday family, you know, like dynamics. It might not come out as, because they might still be posting every day because they hired somebody to do their social media management. So it's not as obvious that this is where it's coming from, but their insecurities might be like, well, my KPI doesn't look that good this week, or what's going on. And then we're taking it out on team members versus looking at ourselves going like, well, why is this so important to me? What is it about my KPI that I'm like having to have this number? Like, why does this number mean so, you know, so like so much to me? And then you break it down from there. So it, everything internal has an external effect, and that's what, where that line has to be drawn, you know, between the two, and they're just not
Interesting.
aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of imposter syndrome have you had or are experiencing now?
I mean, I've had a lot I've had for me, I've had a lot of which I would say this one is the one that I've probably worked the hardest on and gotten through, I think, the most, is, you know, showing up online and social media. Like, I have definitely had that. I think that came from um you know, just, I was bullied in school. Like, I was picked on all the time. My first social post that I put on when I was in just starting my business, people like said I was like a man, like they would make fun of me, like all these people like coming out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like seriously, like who has time to do this? Like, I really don't understand. Um, but it really upset me initially, obviously, like it would anybody, you know, like you don't want to be insulted when you're actually like putting your heart out there and like trying to do something positive. But now I just go, I must be doing something right if I get a troll, because they're arguing with me at this point. So that's great. And so I've spun it around and I worked on it intensely, because it wasn't so much that it was showing up on social media, it was like the criticisms, right? And I never really worked through getting bullied as a kid, you know? So like that was something that I had to bring to awareness, going like, you know, because I just brushed it off as a kid. I just pretended like it didn't bother me, even though it did. And, you know, kind of going like, it's okay to feel like that hurt at one point, you know, but that's not my story now. And what we do a lot of in the program is we talk about victim consciousness. And if we are spinning in that, like almost like when we live in that reality where it keeps coming back up like that, we're actually still in victim consciousness. And that's a word I hate, which is victim. So it really motivates me. And I think a lot of people hate it. They don't like to have that connotation. And so I looked at it and I said, I can either choose to basically stay back here, like when I was like 16 years old getting picked on, or I can choose to embrace the person I am now, which is not this person. I'm not sitting in that role anymore, and not be in victim consciousness. I can be in success. So it's like shifting that way of thought and developing new thought patterns too, as well. But that one, and then money, which was money is a big one for a lot of people, money mindset stuff, you know, and am I capable of earning this money? Am I capable of doing these things? And I grew up in a house that was traditional. You know, my dad worked in the school system for 35 years. Like, I used to work in the school system, and he thought I was crazy for leaving it because you can't get fired. It's like a security, like you can't get fired. You can't get any money either, but like you can't get fired. And I mean, I literally made that decision without talking to anybody. I was like, except for my husband, because he was the only one that got it because he left his 9 to 5 job before I did. And so he was like, do it, you know, I'm behind you, but I didn't involve anybody else. But then once I left and went full time on my own, the money stuff really creeped in for me because I was like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to make enough money? Am I going to be able to like support my family and my kid and like all of these things? And then I thought that that was really the concern, but the bottom line of it was I started to, I think like a lot of society now, like started to see money as like a bad thing. And so I equated it growing up to, you know, my mom always had these money conversations, and it was always about money and like you know, how much money are we going to get if so and so was like passed? And I was like, why are we having these freaking conversations? Like, I thought they were just ugly conversations. I understand now, like when I'm a kid, I'm perceiving them differently, but like it felt very ugly, like the money conversations. And so I, I had this polarizing of I wanted to have the money, but then I felt like if I have the money, am I like an ugly person? So it was like these two things. So it kept me in limbo for a little while until I figured that out, you know, around that like $120,000 bar, until like I started to like really look at it going like, why am I stuck with money? Because it had nothing to do with me showing up or showing up with my clients or getting clients. It was literally like my pricing for my clients was horrible. And so I was getting all these clients and I was growing, but my money really wasn't because I wasn't pricing myself how I should have. And so kind of working through that and understanding like they're not really paying for me as I am now. They're paying for the results I'm getting them, and then also my experience and all the things I know, and really understanding like that I need to have my own value before I can teach them about theirs, right? So that was a big one for me. It was money. Like, sometimes that one's tricky still for me, but that
We're
one
always
was a big
working
one.
on ourselves, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm not perfect. I totally admit that. So
That's
yeah,
good. At least we
yeah,
got that out of the way.
yeah, never.
So how did you first learn how to work on yourself, like with the imposter syndrome or the money? Like what tools or skills, what did you develop?
So when I was back in the day when I was like youngin, I feel like I started studying all this stuff extensively when I was 23. So I really started looking at it. I hit the lowest point. So just to give people references. So because I was bullied, like I said, extensively, like from probably age 7, 8, all the way through high school. Like that was just like, and I went to private school. So it's like, they all just follow you. It's just like, you just keep going. Can't get away from it. And when I went to college, it was almost like a fresh start for me because I went to a college nobody else went to. It was great. Like I kind of had a reboot, which was awesome. But I did find like a couple of things were following me there, and I now understand now as an adult looking back on it, like I really caused a lot of that to happen because I couldn't get out of my own way or my own mental spirals on things. And I was studying sociology at the time because I really wanted to be a criminologist. That was my passion when I was going to my undergrad. And Carl Jung, who's now a popular thing, which I'm learning because it's trending now, but he was not when I was in school. And I felt I loved him. And we actually studied him in sociology because the psychology realm didn't want anything to do with him because he lived in the subconscious. It's like, even though he was a licensed psychologist, they didn't want anything to do with him because he was not in like that conscious like frontal lobe brain like Freud was, right? Like they just didn't really want anything to do with him. So I fell in love with him, and they really adopted him in the sociology realm of things, and that was really what, you know, I started to study and started to see the patterns then. But when I was 23, I went through a really big dip, and I actually I was in a bad limbo spot. I took a year off of school. I was working my retail job. I got really sick with mono, ironically, like the really bad version where like, you should be hospitalized. I was never hospitalized because I was stubborn. Like that was just me. And I lost an immense amount of weight. Like I wouldn't eat anything. And this was like several months. Like I don't even remember. Like I was on all these medications and I went from a size 12 to a 0 in like 2 months, 2.5 months. It was insane. Like I had no bone, like muscle density or anything anymore. And what I realized though was actually I was depressed, which I had no idea. Like, when you're in it, you just don't realize it. And one of my friends told me to go to a therapist. She came down to visit me and I did. And it was going okay. And then I went to one of the appointments and she just, I don't know if she was having a bad day or what, but like she like took out everything on me. And I was still in a very fragile mental space to a point where I went home and I just tried to end it. And the only thing that saved my life was because I took a bunch of pills was I couldn't, I was so emaciated, like there was no way that they were going to go anywhere. Um, so I crawled into bed, went to bed. I was like, whatever happens, happens. Whatever's meant to happen will happen. And I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, obviously I'm meant to be here. I'm supposed to do something with my life, clearly. And I went and studied. That was like the next day I went and actually applied to go into the counseling program at my local university because I said, I don't want anybody else to feel like that. Because that was just like, that was horrible for me. Um, and so I started studying the counseling realm. And then that was when like Carl Jung came back in my life and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember him and I remember being obsessed with him and realizing that a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of this stuff that we label and like this giant umbrella is a lot of what depression actually is. It causes it because we start to overthink and we start to be in our subconscious brain, and our subconscious brain, as much as we love it, because it does protect us from a lot of things, is also that broken record player that likes to tell us why we're not good at stuff. And it likes to pull up the like Rolodex of like information. Like, you remember when you were like 8 and you fell on your bike? Well, that means you're going to be a crappy bike rider for the rest of your life. Like that's what it does because it's designed to do it. But it also protects us from touching fire and like, things like that. So we love it, but it's really that deep dive into that started to really get me to understand what I was doing. Like I was driving this whole thing and I was like, why am I talking to myself like this? Why am I doing this? Why am I in this imposter syndrome spin, really? And it just really boils down to like the root, like, right, the root of the problem. And once you actually figure out what that root is, whatever that is, and you bring it to awareness, it's like, can't hide from it anymore, and your brain can't hide it from you. And like all of a sudden you're like, I have to either face it and be in like, so I would say like survival or success mode. I don't like using survival because I feel like that makes it anxious, but like success, like I can be in success, I can be like in a winning circle, I can be like moving forward, or I can stay in awareness of this and continue to bring it up and be in victim consciousness, which is not really what I want to do. So that was like my first dip into it. And then I've studied so many things since then. That it just kind of goes down the rabbit hole of everything else. But that's my first guy is Carl Jung, and I would say like if nobody knows or understands the subconscious mind, that's like where I would start because he definitely gives you that. I would say that overall umbrella of understanding of what's going on in your brain, and then you can kind of go down the rabbit hole wherever you would like to because there's just so many avenues from there. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and I did touch on some of his stuff just like on YouTube or whatever. It just pops up
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? What's this about? And
He's trending,
so
man.
it
I
is
feel
it is
cool.
trending. It's because everybody's jumping into that mindset and
Yes.
working on themselves and everything. Especially, since you're doing it all the time, it's gonna pop up for you, and people that are trying to learn it's gonna pop up. Um, but I want to touch on real quick. It sounds like it was that life-changing moment that kind of
Yeah.
shifted everything, right? And I mentioned this a lot with some other people. It's weird and it's good in a way that how something like that has to happen, unfortunately, right? To
Yes.
shift things.
Absolutely.
So, make the shift as you got in your background there, right?
Yeah.
So,
My
oh,
one's burned out, but the other one's still on. We're good. Yeah.
okay. I only see the one, but yeah. So it's just that pivotal, right, moment that we need, right? That spark, whatever you want to
Yes.
call it, to just go ahead and change things. And for me, it was going through losing my job and the divorce and stuff, all the unexpected
Yeah.
things that I never even thought would come for me. Um, it it's amazing. So I'm glad to hear for you that you took that other side where you worked on yourself, and for
Yeah.
where unfortunately some people don't do that. And so that's why we have this space right here. So hopefully somebody can learn from this, and
Yeah.
they can get up and walk on and learn and move forward. Um, Sorry, it looked like you had something you might wanted to say
Oh
there.
no, I was just gonna say that it's one of those things that I think personal development work gets easier over time. It's because like you become more aware. But like if you're feeling stuck, just know that it's normal to have some challenges. Like it's normal, and it's not and I always want to emphasize this because if when I share this story, I always wanted to say, like, I couldn't talk about this like until about 2.5 years ago. Like, I never told anybody that I took a handful of pills until 2.5 years ago. So, and I'm 41 and I was 23 when it happened, you know? So, like, I always want to emphasize that it's not like, oh, all of a sudden overnight, I was like, oh, yeah, let me just share all this stuff in like my life because I would say certain things are really a lot easier to move through than others, you know, and that's okay. Like, there were certain things in my life that I mentioned and I got over really quickly that were a challenge. But like to somebody else, they might be like, how did you get through it that quickly? Because they might go through something similar and they're still stuck or they feel stuck. Um, and that's okay. Like, you know, everybody's going to go at your own pace and with whatever resources that work for you. And I would just say there's no wrong way to do it. Just figure out whatever method works, you know, and start to do those questions and those explorations. And if you choose to work with somebody, just find somebody that's actually going to hold that support for you and not look at you like you're broken or you need to be fixed because you don't and you're not. Like, that's the thing. It's like that was the thing that I had to learn is that like I'm not broken. Like I don't need to be fixed. I just need to come back to who I was before the world told me who to be. Before I got this like guide of misinformation, I would say, and took wrong turns and then I kind of came back, you know. Um just like if you're lost in the middle of the wilderness with a roadmap from like the 1990s and you got to figure out how to get back on the road, you know, it's the same thing. And I think that there's nothing wrong with anybody and we all kind of are fighting something that, you know, nobody knows about. So, you know, there's no wrong way to do it.
No, you're right. And reaching out to people like yourself is a great way to start. So, Paige, how does somebody connect with you, learn more about you? And I know you have a podcast, so you can share
Yeah,
whatever you want. Yeah.
I definitely do that. Jonathan helped me with that. Yeah, so my podcast is The Unspoken Truth. I've been having a lot of women on there who are just like going through life, going through business, just kind of the ups and downs, like why they actually chose this life, and then really helping them understand, like sometimes on the podcast, what's going on. But having them share their like triumphs and their trials as well. So that's what I do. Right now, it's only on Spotify and YouTube. I'm on YouTube as The Unspoken Truth. And then the other stuff is Soul Charge. So soulcharge.com. That is the company that I am a part of now. This is where we help all of these female entrepreneurs. I'm the COO in this company. My CEO is Stacy Barenfuss, who she is more of the social presence. So if you see her everywhere, like just know that's still part of me. And she also has a podcast actually, and it's the Soul Charge podcast. So she definitely hits more in that like as a leader, what you can do on a daily basis, like how you can move through, how you can shift your thought processes. She does do some interviews as well, but for her, it's more those gut checks, like reflection questions, like especially if you're a big journaler or a big meditator, like her podcast would be great for you, just because she can like get you those questions and stuff like that. And that's what we're doing right now. And we have a on Soul Charge. If you go to soulcharge.com, we actually have an event, a free event going on every 2 weeks right now, where we do a breakthrough with a small group of women every 2 weeks. So we keep the seating limited, but it's called Liberation. And we just believe that in that it's an hour, and it's, like I said, it's free, and we help you get liberated from your limiting beliefs in that hour. So you kind of come in with a central focus of like, what am I stuck on? And then we help you release that in an hour in a group. And it's really, really awesome to have been part of it. And it's I never thought you could do something like that in a group until I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of awesome. I love this thing. Because I've been doing one-to-one work for a long time, and seeing it in that space has been really, really cool. So we're doing that. We have one, it's like usually the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So just kind of keep looking for that. So
Cool. Thank you.
yeah.
And so I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Okay. So what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Wow, that's a deep question. Oh my goodness. So one is okay, well, first of all, sidebar, I'm a big fan of Ted Lasso. So he's listening, watching Ted Lasso. But he said something, and I rewatch this show. If I find a show I love, I just rewatch it. Like, that's just my thing. And it's probably one of the most emotionally intelligent shows I've ever seen in my life. And he says this quote in the first season, and he said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And so he was talking about it being like, so other people, other people being curious, not judgmental about him. And I believe that in the work that I do, that's what we should do for ourselves. Like, we should not be judging ourselves for falling short, or for not hitting the marker, or not getting to that goal we wanted that month. Instead, you should just be like, well, why? Like, asking yourself what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, it's personal. It's not something you're doing. You're usually lining up all your ducks in a row somewhere. But it's usually something personal that's bothering you, and that's why you're not hitting the mark, right? So that would be like my first one that I love. And I tell my clients that all the time when they start beating themselves up. I'm like, hold on. Like, why are we doing this? Like, go, like, let's not yell at ourselves. So that's a big one. The other one is, the second one I would say is, I am the eternal learner of my life. I don't ever think I'm going to master it. I think when I feel like I'm a master, then I'm done, and I no longer will be in existence here. It's just like, to think that you're done with personal development work is, to me, like an uneducated point of view. So even though I've done a lot of work, I always have like a book on my desk that I'm reading, or something like that I want to go deeper into. And I think it points back to that first one, like, just always being curious about what's going on, and not being afraid to like research something different. So like, that's for me. And then the other thing, the third one for me, which is more business oriented, is, well, I guess life as well, is don't be afraid to like put yourself in the room with different people, because you don't know what's going to come out of it. Like, when I met you in Orlando, I knew nobody. Like, I walked into that house having signed up for the BLN network 2 weeks prior. And Jared's like, "Do you want to come to Orlando?" I'm like, "Okay." I know nobody, right? And the connections I've made have been amazing, this year. And it's been a really good opportunity for me to just explore different things and different options, and get encouraged to do things that I wanted to do, like the podcast, and I never had done it, and like, things like that. So I think that, don't be scared to try new things, like, or put yourself in uncomfortable situations that, not painful situations, but things that might not feel like your norm. Because I was terrified walking into that house. I don't like not knowing people, but I quickly adapted, obviously, because I had a great time. But it's, the initial thing is like, kind of push through the fear, and you know, take the leap, do the thing that you're being asked to do. Because I feel like if it's put in your way for a reason, I mean, it's put there for a reason. Like, you're supposed to do it. Like, I shouldn't have been at that Orlando event. I was supposed to have a retreat that week, and I actually ended up moving it to March. And because I went to that Orlando event, I met Rachel, and Rachel helped me out with the retreat. It was like, oh, well, this makes sense, So it's like, things are put into your path for a reason, and you just need to sometimes take the leap, and I would say have a lot of faith in that. So those are my
Absolutely
big
right.
three. Yeah.
There's some big three ones there, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
definitely
should
take the
publish it
lead.
in a book.
Yeah, you'll have to do a solo episode on your podcast.
I know,
Um,
right?
no, this has been great, Paige. I got to learn a lot about you, a lot about your business, and I'm glad you were open and sharing everything that you experienced through your life. And yeah, I hope to stay in contact and see where things go for you for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I would
So,
love that. And I would like to actually talk to you more instead of just like brief little
yeah,
DM messages.
I know, right?
So
Yeah, well, you're too busy. That's, or maybe I don't know, who knows, whatever.
we're both busy. Let's just be real.
Well,
It's okay.
yeah, it's all right. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.